Hughes.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President. Well, what we do all know is that Australia has an ageing population. More of us are heading into retirement age, and more of us are winding down to enjoy a little more of life and are looking to enjoy the fruits of our labours, contributing to this country's success and prosperity. Though under this government, how much of that fruit remains in the nest is another story. The impact on cost of living is having a serious impact on our most vulnerable Australians, as well as poor standards in aged care. It's too expensive to receive the care that they need, to purchase medicines, to buy groceries. Rents are going up, taxes have increased, energy bills are up. The people who have toiled their whole life and have done their bit are now suffering at the hands of this government's heartless policies. They're too busy virtue signalling, helping their union mates and lining the pockets of their wind and solar industry friends. But as it's easy to sit here and attack this government, we actually do, on crucial matters, want to work constructively to ensure Australians get the best out of life. And all Australians want and expect our older Australians to be well supported and cared for in our community, including in residential aged care homes. Those of us on this side of the chamber remain committed to supporting the health, safety and well-being of older Australians and understands the important role that aged care providers, care workers and nurses play in ensuring this support is provided in residential care settings. Now, the Coalition is supporting this bill because we do believe that the desire to permanently establish an Inspector-General for aged care, transitioning the temporary arrangements for the interim Inspector-General to a permanent one, is a good thing to ensure more oversight in the operations of the aged care sector and to ensure better quality of life and safer care for all. The aged care sector delivers a fundamental service to older Australians, protecting them, caring them and supporting them on their journey of ageing gracefully, peacefully and with dignity. We need transparency and accountability throughout the system. And with the installation of an Inspector-General, we believe that any underlying issues can and will be better dealt with. The Coalition supports the independence of the Inspector-General and endorses the separation of the Inspector-General from the Department of Health and Aged Care and other government bodies to ensure the office remains impartial and able to conduct itself without the concerns of politically motivated interference. Given the number of deaths in aged care homes since the pandemic were exacerbated under this government, it is very welcome to see this government finally listening to the Coalition's calls to do something to improve the outcomes for our elderly Australians and implementing reasonable, rational measures to protect and to better serve our elderly Australians. We all remember that during the election campaign, aside from other things, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese promised every aged care home would have a nurse on site at all times by July this year. Well, Prime Minister, it's been over a year under your watch and aged care homes are closing down. In fact, to the best of our knowledge, we've been able to ascertain that more than 30 homes have tragically closed down. And we know that these closures impact families so directly when we know we have long-term married couples, one of whom needs to go into aged care. The local aged care home closes and that couple is then forced to separate, not only because of the residency in the aged care facility, but because of the distance that they now have to travel to visit their spouse. And this is all a result of this government's expedited 24/7 registered nurses requirement that was foisted upon the sector during a severe workforce crisis. I mean, this is just standard play from Labor. Increased demand without increasing supply. Economics 101 has been replaced by Albanomics and Charmonomics that still haven't worked this out across our country and across many sectors. Worse still is the administrative burdens this government has imposed on registered nurses. The on-site registered nurse must report every period of 30 minutes or more that a registered nurse was not on-site or not on duty, and the reason that there wasn't a registered nurse on-site or on duty every 30 minutes. I mean, heaven help some of these hard-working aged care staff put under this additional administrative burden whilst they're trying to deal with, at times, outbreaks of RSV or COVID, which is still occurring. It's happened a couple of times recently, actually, at the residential care facility my mum's at. And I can tell you I'd much prefer that the staff are there making sure that no one's had a fall, that people are in their rooms when they should be, and that there's no adverse impacts being felt by them. But no, every 30 minutes, this insane administrative burden is crippling, in particular, small, regional, rural and remote providers. When in government, the Coalition called the Royal Commission into aged care quality and safety to ensure that our oldest and most vulnerable Australians received the care and supports and respect of their dignity, and recognise the important contribution that they have made over their lifetime to society. We delivered billions in reforming the sector to provide respect, care and dignity to our senior Australians. Our 2022-23 budget responded to 10 recommendations of the Royal Commission and built on our existing 5 pillars of aged care reform. So what are those pillars, you might ask? The Coalition strongly supported home care, supporting senior Australians who choose to remain in their home, that we should allow them comfort and support that they desire in their twilight years, that they've contributed years and years and years to our society, and it's only fair that we give something back for those contributions rather than casting them aside now they're no longer useful to us. Well, they are useful to us. They have wisdom, they have insight, they have experience, and we should in fact be spending more time looking to them for advice and spending time with them and having that intergenerational connection that will improve both our lives in the workforce by helping us avoid the same mistakes of the past and give our elderly the honour and dignity they deserve. This is a failure in many ways across the West. There are many cultures around the world that place a far greater amount of respect on their elders, and I think we would do well to learn from them. Even our Indigenous Australians honour their elders. We acknowledge their elders every time we start up a speech or event in this country, yet we don't want to give any honour or respect to the rest of our elderly Australians. And in residential aged care services and sustainability, we want to improve and simplify residential aged care services and access, not make it more difficult, like I said earlier, by making it harder for aged care homes to comply, by seeing homes shut down because they can't meet the restrictions and requirements and pressures put on them by this government. We look to residential aged care quality and safety to improve residential aged care, both the quality and the safety. And, well, hopefully and thankfully the addition of an Inspector General begins this task of ensuring there is quality and safety in our homes. The Coalition Government understood the importance of workforce. By supporting and growing a better skilled care workforce, we need to crucially entice and retain nurses and healthcare workers to join the aged care ranks. As I've said, we're an ageing population and we're still experiencing a crisis in the Australian workforce at present across all sectors, and this needs to be remedied as soon as possible, especially if we were to, God forbid, experience another health crisis. And of course, the Coalition, when in government, supported new legislation that would provide for stronger governance. So it is imperative that the Albanese government now continues our work to support the aged care sector, and this is a step in the right direction, and we commend the government on that, but a lot of damage has and continues to be done. Our elderly Australians, whoever they are, wherever they're from all walks of life, all classes and subsections of our community, all deserve the dignity and respect the rest of us enjoy, if not more, because they've laid the foundations of what we proudly stand on today. I know that there are some in this chamber and elsewhere who believe these foundations, our Australian foundations, deserve to be destroyed and replaced. But those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it, and it happens all too often. The irony is that they believe they are the more virtuous among us. They believe they are the ones who can fix our problems. But their beliefs are built on anti-human sentiment. They want to remove the dignity of the elderly, not restore it or amplify it, because to them the elderly represent a bygone era that now must be erased. It's a telling sign of the calibre of a society by how they treat their most vulnerable. And I believe Australia to be a country with people of good character and people who believe in giving everyone a fair go regardless of who they are. This is why we must continue to do our part for ageing Australians, like what's being addressed in this bill today.